Okay, hello. Welcome to Monk Radio. Today we have a little bit of a disturbance in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear that on the internet, but it might come over in the videos. Anyway, also, for some reason it's quite bright out, so it looks like I'm surrounded in some kind of a glow. That's for me anyway. Okay, and another thing is today we have, I just remembered that we have this question and answer feature for the actual show. So during the show itself, you can ask questions, and we'll try to incorporate those in. So if you have live questions, I'll try to get to them. Again, they follow the same sort of guidelines as the other questions. They should be practical, and I think based on the sheer number of questions, they should also be something that I haven't explicitly answered before. So if I have, I'll just call you out and refer you to go and find the video on our website, the old video. Okay, otherwise, we're ready to start here. I don't know that there'll be many live viewers. Probably most of you will be watching this canned after the fact, because again, I'm not advertising this. So anyway, we'll see. Probably some people show up. Okay, so we'll just get started then, answering the questions on YouTube. Again, if you see there's a few people logged on, if you have questions, I think you can ask them from the YouTube page. There should be some kind of an app there. All right, so we'll get started here. I'm answering questions from radio.sirimangalo.org. So if you want to find the questions, you can go there. I'm not answering questions via YouTube comments, but there seems to be a way to submit questions via YouTube now. We've done this before, so I'm just reactivating it. See how that goes. If you want to ask live questions. Okay, so number one. Again, we have noise in the background. I don't know if you can hear it, but they're having some kind of a concert across the street. How does one mindfully go to sleep? Sleeping seems to come easiest when the mind wanders off in fantasy, different from rumination. Also, will you say a little bit about the dreaming state generally and in one who is constantly mindful throughout the day? So the difference between an ordinary person and someone who is mindful throughout the day. Okay, so first of all, mindfully going to sleep. There's a few points here. First one is how to mindfully go to sleep. Simply the technical aspect is you practice until you fall asleep. The point being that for a meditator, the idea is not to sleep. Mahasi Sayadaw gives a very nice, the Mahasi Sayadaw gives a very nice teaching on this, just a short teaching on falling asleep, and I think it's Vipassana meditation exercises or something, some booklet, and he says falling asleep isn't difficult. It's actually quite easy if you for people who are relaxed. It's not difficult to fall asleep. So he goes on to say the point is to stay awake as long as possible. So actually you should be trying to stay awake until you literally collapse and can no longer physically stay awake. So the point is not to meditate in order to fall asleep. The point is to meditate until you do fall asleep, whenever that is. So then the second point in regards to that is the idea that it makes it more difficult to fall asleep. And I think that's actually correct in many cases, because proper meditation will actually give you energy and keep you awake. So the point being that you'll only fall asleep when your body truly needs it, when there's truly, just a physical collapse where the body just shuts down and you go to sleep. That's when one should engage in sleeping. Now, I got called out on this because of last week's video on whether you need a lot of sleep or whether a little sleep is enough, and I said meditators can go without sleeping, and someone said, well, this is where Buddhism should give up and let science answer the questions. The thing about science is it does a wonderful job explaining ordinary cases. It has a bit of difficulty explaining sort of radical cases. It always has. This is a history of science, because the tendency is, if it doesn't fit with an accepted theory, the tendency is to dismiss it as an irregularity or statistically insignificant. So if 1 in a million people doesn't need to sleep, or only needs a small amount of sleep, well, the initial response is that this is statistically insignificant, or it's an anomaly. Perhaps that person has some strange genetic makeup or something like that. But so to actually change the ideas of science, you'd have to come up with a bunch of people meditating to go into a lab and to show that actually when you practice meditation you need less sleep. But it's certainly the case. There are meditators, monks, and lay people who go for days, weeks, months without any sleep whatsoever. It has been done. It is being done. There are people, I'm sure, even today doing it in the forest. Not that I personally know of, but I know of people who have done it. I've myself engaged in that sort of practice for days on end as well. It's not in certain cases you'll fall asleep sitting up. I think that's maybe more common, where a person just never lies down, never goes to sleep, and maybe for a half an hour or an hour of night they will nod off sitting up. That's probably more common than actually not sleeping at all, because the body generally needs to, and so it will shut down. But it's a different take. It's also the same as with food. I mean, I once did, as a monk, I did an exercise counting calories for 3 days, and it turned out that as a monk I was eating only about 1/3 of the calories I needed to survive according to science. And here we are 13 years later, and I'm still alive and quite healthy, eating 1 meal a day, and that's quite common. So science is in many cases inexact, or popular science is in many cases inexact. So they say, well, a study shows this, a study shows that, and therefore you need so many hours of sleep, therefore you need so much food, etc., etc. When in fact, reality is a little bit less rigid than that. There are cases, there are extreme cases or special cases where people can do without food, do without sleep, at least to a great extent. Anyway, so a little bit off track there, but that's related to last week's question as well. Basically, the idea is not to sleep until it's actually physically impossible to stay awake. Then one allows oneself to fall asleep, and the Buddha said that one should at that point be thinking about the moment of waking. So as you're falling asleep, or before once you lie down and go to sleep, keep in mind, I want to wake up at this time. So in 4 hours, my intention is to wake up. That way, 4 hours later, your mind will wake you up, and you'll be able to continue meditating. Otherwise, you might oversleep. You'll find yourself maybe waking up and falling back asleep, or sleeping in, and so on. Whereas if you make a determination, you're able to get up having just the basic minimum amount of sleep. Really, if you're intensively meditating, you don't want more than 4 hours of sleep. You'll find that any more than that, and you feel drowsy, you feel heavy, and you'll feel perfectly balanced and efficient on just 4 hours of sleep. or the efficiency allows you to feel perfect on just 4 hours of sleep. And this relates to the last point about the difference between a state of a person's sleep. A mindful person doesn't tend to dream at all, because dreams tend to be, for the most part, related to the ruminations that are going on in the mind before one falls asleep. So if a person's mind is clear, if there's no baggage, no garbage, then what you'll find in the beginning is there are very strong, intense dreams, as the intense ruminations that are still working their way out come to the fore, and all the garbage has already been cleared out, all the small thoughts have been cleared out by the meditation, so the big ones really come on strong, and there's violent dreams or passionate dreams and so on. But eventually, once those work themselves out, the mindful meditator will find themselves not dreaming at all. They're just like echoes of the day, and it's all a mishmash of things. And because of the lack of mindfulness for anyone who's sleeping, because of the inability to discern and to, in general, the inability to differentiate or to react objectively, there's just a continuation of one's wholesome or unwholesome thoughts, tendencies. So the difference is that when someone is mindful constantly throughout the day, they'll have less of this, and their sleep will be much more. That's why a meditator's sleep is much more beneficial, because it's deep and undisturbed. I'm gonna get this serenade in the background. But okay, here we have a live question. Let's see how this works. How do I meditate longer than 10 minutes because I can't? I feel for you. In the beginning, a 10-minute meditation session is more than enough. If you can't do more than 10 minutes, then just do 10 minutes. I mean, that's great. Find out or learn as much as you can in those 10 minutes about yourself. In fact, you'll find it really isn't about the amount of time, it's about the state of mind throughout the meditation. The reason why we can't continue isn't because of how long we've been meditating. It's because of at any given moment, the diversion of our minds to wanting something, or to being upset about something, to being agitated by something, or depressed, or so on, confused by something. So every moment that you can clear that up is another moment where you can meditate. And it's simply about stringing those moments together, getting better at stringing those moments together. So eventually there comes a moment where you just can't, or not that you can't, where you fail to do that. You fail to be objective about the experience. And so you fall off and you stop meditating. That could come after 1 minute, that could come after 10 minutes. It generally comes frequently throughout the meditation. So just practice for 10 minutes doing that, and as you get better at catching these difficult moments and being more skillful towards them, you'll be able to therefore last longer before one catches you and tells you that's enough, time to give up meditating, time to stop. That's the best way, I think, to increase your time. Don't focus on the amount of time, focus on those moments where you want to quit, because that moment is the defining moment. It will come again and again and again, and that's what you have to work on. Well, that works much better. Except it only allows live, it's only for live questions. Still, oh, you know what I should do? I should get one person to copy all the questions from the Google Moderator from top to bottom. I should get a moderator, a live moderator, to pick through the questions and make sure they're all practical and that I haven't answered them before, and copy them. I can't do it myself because that would involve opening a YouTube window. I don't know, is there somebody out there who could do that? If there's somebody out there who could start copying the questions from the Google Moderator into the whatever it is on YouTube that allows you, because that way it'll pop up on people's screen as they watch the video as well. It's kind of neat. Then I don't even need to use the Google Moderator. If someone out there can, then just go ahead and copy and paste from the top. The first one there is from Mateo in Croatia. See if there's anyone out there who can do this. Alright, well anyway, I guess I'll just go on my own. Yeah, I'm just going to answer it then. I have a question regarding social confrontations and disagreements. If a person is frustrated, confused, and easily angered by my advice and thoughts, should I let the conversation go, or still try to help them? Right. Well, the question is why you are trying to help them in the first place. It's a valid question. Why are you why are you interested at all in helping this person? Because if they're angry at you, then chances are they don't really want your help. They don't really want your advice. If they come to you looking for advice, and then you give them advice, they say, can you help me with this? And so you give them advice, and then they get frustrated. Well, then you can say, well, why did you come to me if you don't want my advice, right? But you don't have that out if you've come to them to give them your advice. Even if they're moaning and complaining, as soon as you decide that you want to give them advice, they've got a hook on you. And then you're being judged by the quality of your advice. So why? Why are you giving advice? Why would someone go out of their way to give other people advice? Now, definitely there's the case for someone who clearly needs help. But even in the case where someone clearly needs help, any help that you provide should be sort of matter of course. Like, well, anyone in my position would have done that. Like, the person fell down, well, you help them up. Or, in fact, in many cases you don't because you're afraid of getting sued. But That sort of thing, you know, where if it's a friend of yours and they've fallen down, you pick them up. If it's a friend of yours and they're crying, well, you do something to console them. But you don't then launch into a lecture on how they should learn to let go of their desires, etc., etc. You know, so basically, if they didn't come to you for your advice, what business do you have giving it to them in the first place? It's a very dangerous thing. In fact, it's really only the kind of thing that a Buddha would do, because he knew exactly when and how to help people. And furthermore, he was requested to do so, and undertook to sacrifice his own happiness for the benefit of others, based on his ability. So his ability to just see what needed to be done and say what needed to be said, and so on. But yeah, so I'd go even further. Shouldn't be helping them in the first place. Done. Okay, thanks, Robin. Robin, you're hired. You're my new questioner. Okay, well, let's go to another live one. How do I deal with sexual urges? I'd refer you to my video on any of my videos on addiction. You can go to video.sirimangalo.org, and there are several videos on sexual urges, celibacy, and that sort of thing. So I'm not going to answer. Again, even if it's a good question, if I've answered it before, what do we need more videos on the same topic, where I'm just repeating myself? Okay, but this is a good one. By David. What is your opinion on devas, angels? Also, with regard to Buddhist mythology, cosmology, where should one stop and think of it as fictional, or should one believe it as true all the way? Yeah, this one's come up a lot, especially with my videos on the Dhammapada, where I talk a lot about magical stuff. The thing about belief is it's only conventionally useful. Belief can't enlighten you. It doesn't even detract from your enlightenment, it doesn't even get in the way of becoming enlightened. It's only conventional because it's dealing with concepts. It's all in the mind, and it has nothing to do, or it doesn't stem from direct experience. So it's meaningless, really, useless. It's only conventionally functional. So that doesn't mean it's useless. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be dealt with. It has to be dealt with, but one should understand that it in no way plays any not in no way. It doesn't directly, in and of itself, have anything to do with the path. It isn't directly wholesome or unwholesome, because you could imagine a situation where it was reasonable to believe pretty much anything. Like someone could set up an elaborate hoax to say that aliens had landed and they had invaded, and they were taking over the continent of North America. So you could believe that, and that belief would in and of itself be meaningless. Now the problem is, of course, what we do with belief, and that's what is much more dangerous, because belief can inform our decisions, inform our actions. And I think that is where we should draw the line, that we should not let any belief inform our practice. I'm being careful here because there's danger here, but I'm pretty sure, confident in saying that our practice should not in any way be based on belief. It doesn't need to be. There may be a sense of someone said X, and so we try it. So I tell you that the 4 foundations of mindfulness lead you to enlightenment, and you say, well, okay, I'll try that. So in a sense, you at least suspend disbelief and you try it. But basing anything on belief, basing really anything about your outlook on life on belief is in getting in the way of your direct experience of reality, because rather than experiencing the truth, you're believing it. Okay, so I'm just trying to think about this idea of faith. So how this relates to the angels. If you live in a society where people believe in angels, then it's functional to go along with that. Okay, well, people believe it. I don't have any proof otherwise. In fact, even if I did, I'll go along with these people. Or maybe I will point out, or I will go along with the idea that humor them as far as, okay, yes, you believe that angels exist. At least in that far. One should at least go that far, even if one doesn't have any such belief oneself. But on the other hand, if one's surrounded by people who claim to have seen angels and who have it on good authority that there are angels and have good theories about why there are angels, then why would we dogmatically hold on to some kind of disbelief? Again, the point being that the belief is just a belief. Okay, yes, well, I believe there could be angels, or it makes sense to me that there are angels, that kind of thing, without it having any effect on your practice. So I'm still going to practice mindfulness. I'm still going to be aware of things as they arise, because that belief is something conceptual. It's just a functional part of society. Now, if you live in a society that is totally has total disbelief in angels, then you might fall into trouble if you hold such beliefs that angels exist. And so in North America, I would, again, this is, I think, radical, and I don't think this is going to be a very popular answer with some Buddhists. But again, this is the point. When you're dealing with people who believe in angels, then it's reasonable to believe in angels. I'm really being tricky here, but I think you have to be. Because I consider, okay, so then we have the case where we have both people, we have the global society now. So take my position, where my audience is people who are very strong in their belief about angels, and in fact, many of them have even spoken or seen or heard from angels, what they claim to be angels. Then you have people who are totally anti-angel, for example, and how do you deal with them? Well, then you have to kind of, again, it's still not a concern for your practice, because practically speaking, you're still mindful here and now. Even if an angel came down, well, it's just and stood in front of you, it's just seeing, and if it spoke to you, then it's just hearing, and that's that. But functionally speaking, you kind of now have to decide what are your beliefs, again, without letting it interfere with your practice. It's not a big deal. The point is, it's not intrinsic to your practice. I think that's a crazy answer. It's I think there's something very important there, but that being said, there is room for those. No, I think the reason for saying it is to help people become more open-minded, become less concerned about whether it's true or not, because there's people who will become incredibly incensed at the idea that a Buddhist could discard or pass off as unimportant the belief in angels. And then there are those people who would be incredibly incensed because you claim to believe in angels. And I think both of those people have to chill out and let go. That's the point. Now, that being said, I think functionally speaking, we can have an open-minded argument, and I would come to the belief, again, belief not having anything to do with my practice directly, the belief that angels exist. And it will be indirectly useful to my practice because it seems to be, in my mind, that which is closely related to reality. So if I stop believing in angels, then in those cases, those aspects of reality that jar with that belief, again, this is crazy. A lot of people are going to say, well, it's exactly the opposite. Your belief in angels is going to jar with reality. So this is where we can have a conversation. But whatever answer more accords with reality, that will be more indirectly useful, because it will jive with your practice of understanding reality. So those are the beliefs that we should incline towards, those that are more related to reality. And again, being able to separate belief from practice. Belief in Buddhism is not practice. Belief is something that is indirectly useful and indirectly harmful. It can be very harmful and it can be very useful, but only indirectly, only insofar as it then informs your actual practice. So if you're set on your practice, it doesn't really matter what you believe. If you know that your practice is realization of reality, doesn't matter to me if there's a God living in my basement, you know, or whether Satan is bringing me breakfast in the morning. You know, you can tell me that Satan's coming tomorrow to bring us lunch, and I'm great. I'm fine. I'll believe that. It's meaningless. It has no effect whatsoever on my practice unless I let it. Unless I then start to say, whoa, does that mean Satan exists, and etc., etc., etc. So I think that leads into the idea of there is it is important to choose your beliefs carefully, but not intrinsically in terms of the practice. So not inconsequential, but not intrinsically practical. I hope that makes sense. So, long story short, if I can condense this into a very short answer, I would suggest that you consider the possibility that angels exist, because it has to do with the idea of rebirth and results having to do with causes, in the sense that a person who dies with a pure mind, that purity doesn't just cease, that purity continues, that purity has itself being caused, has a cause itself, or has an effect itself, and therefore a person becomes angelic when they pass away, if they're angelic, if they become angelic in this life, and whereas the person has been awful, they become awful in the next, in the future. So by denying the existence of angels, it's going to mess with your practice, because it's going to get in the way, insofar as it's going to get in the way there. Now, the idea that there's this angel or that angel up in heaven is not really important, but the fact, much more important, is how it relates to you, and how it relates to your concept of the individual, your concept of a being. You know, does a being die at the moment of death? Does a being continue on after they die? Is there some relationship between the future and the present, and the past and the present, and so on. So I hope I haven't confused the heck out of you, but I think I had to sort of be more general and broad about that, because this idea of faith has come up a lot. And even in terms of the teaching of the Buddha, people want to say, well, you have to have faith and you have to believe in them. And I would say, well, functionally or indirectly, that's useful, because it just so happens that, surprise, you've chosen the teachings that are true. And so by believing them to be true, you're much more likely to practice them. But that's not in and of itself practical, or in and of itself beneficial. It's indirectly beneficial, very beneficial, because it allows you to practice teachings that are correct. Now, if you had instead chosen another religion, well, then you'd be in trouble. But in that sense, it's just indirectly useful, because you've happened to chosen the right teaching. Now, that belief, of course, may be based on reason, logic. It may be based on blind faith, or it may be based on seeing the example of the Buddha, the example of enlightened beings, and so on. It still isn't a replacement for practice, and it's only indirectly related to enlightenment. And again, it can have a profound effect. If you are stuck on disbelief, then you have a hard time practicing. But on the other hand, if you're stuck on faith, you'll have a hard time practicing, because you can become conceited about it. You have the thought that I believe all of this, and therefore I am in line with the truth. But the Buddha called this Satyanurakita, or Satyanurakana, one who, or the guarding of the truth. It's not actually attainment of the truth. You're just guarding the truth. If you say, I believe X, well, that's a true statement, because I do believe X, right? But it doesn't say anything about whether X is true or not. It's called guarding the truth. As long as you say, I believe this, I believe that, you're not wrong. You're not saying a lie. But when you say X is true, if you don't know, if you're just going on belief, then you have a potential problem. Then you've lost the truth, because you're saying something that you don't actually know. I know this to be true, and you don't actually know it. That's the problem. Anyway, so some thoughts. I'm not sure if I completely answered that, but that's my opinion and my thoughts on what one should believe, how one should believe it, and so on. Where do you live? That's not... Where do I live? I live in Canada, but I'm not going to answer that one. Look at this. People are voting them up. That's pretty cool. The second half gets even crazier. Yeah, well, okay. I've answered this question several times, because I did something kind of mean in that video. And I said, oh, then there's the second half that gets even more crazier. It wasn't a lie. It certainly did get a lot crazier after I became a monk. But first of all, I don't like talking about myself. I did sit down once and try to tell the how many was it? It was 6 or 7 years of my first years as a monk. But it was so dull and uninteresting that I deleted it again, because I didn't include any of the juicy stuff. I'm just not interested enough in it. Maybe someday I would write a biography. I think monks sometimes do that, but it's not really interesting for me. And the other thing I've said is that, well, it's problematic because a lot of the people involved are still alive, and politics being the way they are, sometimes, you don't want to air your dirty laundry, that kind of thing. It's not nice. Some things are best kept amongst the parties involved, just for not hurting feelings. fast. Okay. Sorry. Bante, I meditate regularly. I'm watching your teachings. I have a problem with incorporating Buddhism in my lay life. I don't want to become a monk or to meditate till death. Please give us more wisdom about lay Buddhism. Well, becoming a monk is only a tool or a vehicle. It's something that you use to get somewhere. It's not the only vehicle. It's not the only tool. Meditation is the prime tool. It's just that for many lay people, there isn't the opportunity to meditate in the way that a monk can. Not the way a monk does, because there are many lay people who meditate more than many monks. So as you say, I have a problem with incorporating Buddhism in my lay life. Well, that's the problem, because the way of the world in most societies tends to go against the teachings of the Buddha. So you really have to make a choice. If you don't want to become a monk or meditate till death, I'm not quite sure what that means, but if you don't want to become a monk and dedicate yourself to meditation, then you have to put up with the trouble, the difficulty of incorporating Buddhism into lay life. I mean, I don't have an answer. That conflict, people will often ask me specific questions: how to deal with my boss, how to deal with my family, how to deal with money, this and that, and the other thing. Sometimes I can give advice for specific instances, but for the most part, there's no answer. You have this conflict. Living as a layperson is generally going to conflict. Now, what I tend to say, and what I've said before, is you want to try to simplify your life. A simple lay life can be, for all intents and purposes, as beneficial as a monastic life. If you're able to live simply, live poorly in the sense of not luxuriously, and so on. If you can do these things, then it is possible to continue in the monastic sort of way, or meditative sort of way. But the other thing is the association with good people, which is also much supported or benefited by the monastic life. So a person who is ordained will be often around people who are meditating, who are teaching, who are practicing, who are studying the teachings of the Buddha, and as a result will have a much easier time following the path. So that's about all I can say about that, generally speaking. Bante, what is the Buddhist definition of death? Is a brain-dead person dead so that he or she has already been reborn and his or her body is but a heap of dead flesh? How many of the 5 khandhas should be absent for death to come? Right. Well, there apparently is a moment where this separation occurs. It may be the case that could be reversed, like in the case of an out-of-body experience, where or near-death experience, where the person appears to have died, the brain has stopped, and minutes or even hours later, the mind turns back on, or the brain turns back on, and the mind is jolted back into the prison of the physical sense basis. So the question is then, has that person died or have they not died? I think because death is a convention, this isn't really that important of a question. I mean, there is this very it's a highly hyped moment called Patisandhi, the moment of relinking, where the mind stops relying on the present physical base and switches to a new base. But practically speaking, from what I've heard and understood about the experience of death, it seems to be a little bit fluid. So again, reality doesn't admit of the idea of death. It's only a moment in time, like any other moment. Now, it's considered to be special because there's a act of switching where the mind switches to a new base, no longer taking this base and now going on to a new base. But again, it seems to be fluid, so there's a sense that it could even come back and take this base again. I mean, I think the orthodoxy is pretty clear that there's that moment and there's no going back, and then there's birth right away in the womb or wherever. But I think it's important that we don't take these things too seriously. There's no reason. Again, it's about belief. This is all this sort of belief that we have. It's about concepts. So there's no real need to be dogmatic that it's this way or that way, or that this or that is death. I think instead we should understand that it can go like this, it can go like that, and basically cause and effect, that our whatever happens, it's going to be very much or to a great extent dependent on our state of mind and the states of mind that we've cultivated in the past. That's really the only important thing to keep in mind. Do you like Germany, and what do you think about eugenics? Why would you ask me, do I like Germany? That's a new one. What do I think about eugenics? Which one's eugenics? Is that where you kill people? Isn't eugenics where you kill people? Yeah, just a second, I'm going to Google it. Oh, right. Well, some of eugenics was killing people who had a poor gene pool, right? Higher reproduction of people and reduced reproduction of people with less desirable, right? Negative and positive eugenics. Oh, like, yeah, like the whole Hitler thing. That was eugenics, wasn't it? All right. I don't know. Not going to answer it. Sorry. Oh, there's one above it. Did I just cop out of that eugenics one? I'm not really interested, I guess. The gene pool, because like why would I be worried about the gene pool? I think it would fail miserably because it's too roundabout. I should have answered it. Maybe I'll answer it. Let me answer it. I'm not going to put the question because I've already deleted it. Eugenics. What do you think about eugenics? Question was asked. Okay, I had to look it up because I wasn't quite clear on eugenics, but eugenics is the intentional alteration of the gene pool or enhancement of the gene pool by encouraging good traits and discouraging poor traits. So I'm sure that there's a whole body of literature written about eugenics from all points of view. From a Buddhist point of view, it's most likely destined to fail in the long term, because it's not taking into account the basis of reality, which is experience. And so it could appear to work in the short term, but in the long term you would find that it would backfire, because you'd run out of the wholesomeness that was creating this. The wholesomeness that was creating the good qualities and repressing the bad qualities would run out, and the unwholesomeness that was creating the poor qualities would eventually overcome the efforts. So eventually you would wind up with quite a perverse state. You know, if you've ever looked at some science fiction and how these science fiction books and how they deal with eugenics and how it would be in the future, I think it would be something of the sort where you would end up with a perverse sort of state, because you're trying to, it's like trying to chop down a tree by cutting off branches. In the point, you're solving the problem in a too roundabout of a manner. If you pull off leaves off of a tree, you can't. It's very difficult to actually kill the tree. The point being, the problem that you're trying to solve, you're not getting to the root, which is the mind. You're by altering the symptoms. That's what it is you're trying to fix the symptoms. Wholesome genetic or positive genetic qualities are a manifestation of wholesomeness, and negative mental qualities are a manifestation of unwholesomeness. Now, this is the Buddhist theory, and of course science is so totally against this concept. Modern science would say that's ridiculous and there's no proof, and so on and so on. And I would encourage such people to try to meditate and maybe change the way they look at things, open up their eyes, and come to see what's truly important. It's too roundabout. You'll never make people better that way, because you won't get to the mind. In fact, you'll be cultivating unwholesomeness by trying to affect things, to force goodness, to force certain mind states, certain states in general. Okay, so that's. I always have trouble with these sorts of questions. Well, I'm skipping around. All right, here's one at the top. I don't know if I can answer a lot of these questions. I don't know if I have really good answers for them. Well, I won't do video for this one. What would be your advice to somebody that would like to spend a year living with, learning from Buddhists? Go for it. Good. Make sure you find the right Buddhists. Buddhists who know what they're talking about. Try to find people who are free from greed, anger, delusion as far as possible. Be sure you're ready for it, kind of thing. I've been meditating. More intensively lately. Alright, well, I've done videos on sadness and depression, and what would I say? I mean, it's, again, just getting to meditate, practicing mindfulness meditation. I mean, it's such a practical question, but I don't really have a good answer, because, I mean, besides, have you read my book? My booklet on how to meditate? I mean, try taking up meditation. Maybe that would help. I should select it, right? I should select it as I talk about it. Anyway. I'll just select them and then I'll decide whether they're any good or not. In your opinion, how many people are looking for transcendence when practicing Buddhism? You mean enlightenment? If you mean enlightenment, then I don't know. How many people? It makes my brain hurt, sorry. Motivation in life. As a Buddhist, is there a conflict between maintaining motivation in life while also practicing giving up attachments and aversions? Yes, definitely. I've done videos on this before, so I'm not going to make a video, but definitely there in most cases they're counter to each other, because the way of the world goes one way, the way of the Buddhism goes another way. Buddhism is to give up one's motivation, worldly motivations, and to be objective and content, to be content and to not have any wants. Okay, here's a good one that I probably struggle with. I'm not sure if I'll have a good answer, but I'll try my best here. It's one that we get a lot. If a being is enlightened, why not tell it to public? Yeah, we get this a lot, people, because there's a debate over this, I think. The Visuddhimagga says, does he tell that he is enlightened or that he has attained this? And the answer it gives is, he does, when he knows that it will be useful for the students, for the listeners' practice. Now, that means that the enlightened person will be able to determine that. So there is the case where an enlightened being will say that they are enlightened when for the purpose of helping someone. But there's a rule there, is that for monks it can only occur between monks. The rule is actually for monks. Monks will not say they're enlightened, even that they attain jhana or absorption meditation. It's against the rules. If one lies about it, one is expelled from the monastic order. But even if one tells the truth, it's still an offense. The point being that we rely on lay people for support, and if we are bragging about our attainments, then suddenly there's a kind of a comparing going on, and it becomes a real nightmare where monks are... What happens is monks begin to brag about their basic attainments, and then there's a sort of a competition, and there will be, as a result, disharmony in the Sangha. That being said, an enlightened being, it's hard to I think it'd be very difficult for someone to argue rationally why they would go out of their way to let it be known that they're enlightened. Now, suppose it came up in conversation where someone said, "Hey, so do you ever get sexual urges?" Now the question is, well, then would an arahant then say, "Oh no, I have none of those. I'm enlightened"? There's no... I think there's no good argument for... No, I think there's a good argument for why they wouldn't. There's a general sense of humility. I mean, an arahant is perfectly humble, so they don't even want to let it be known how much they practice meditation or any of their good qualities, their scriptural or their textual knowledge, let alone their enlightenment. I think the humility, the lack of ego leads to a sense of avoiding it. Not just not going out of one's way to let it be known that one's enlightened, but to actively avoid mentioning it. There's cases of this if you read in the texts, and it's something you feel as you practice, that the more you practice, the less you want to let it be known about yourself. It's just a sense of humility, of contentment. It's somehow stressful to agitate someone, to make them feel somehow feel inferior as a part of it. It just feels quite wrong to go out of your way and brag about these, or to not just go out of your way, but to even mention. It's kind of the case where it's like the case where suppose someone mistakenly thinks another person has done something, and they say, "Oh, look at that person, they've done something great." Or someone says, "Oh, wow, look at this wonderful thing." There was this, someone came and cut my grass, for example, and an ordinary person won't actually say, "Oh, by the way, it was me who cut your grass." You see, because it's bragging. It's saying something for the purpose of ingratiating yourself with the other person. So this is why the answer is they would only do it when they knew it would be beneficial to the person listening. The only time they would actually say it is in the case where sometimes it would put a meditator in their place. But I would reckon that, and I think what the Visuddhimagga says, the example it gives is a student who is very close to the teacher. So in a general sense, I would be strongly against the idea that an arahant or anyone who has had any significant progress in meditation would ever, in front of an audience of people, say, "Oh, I'm enlightened," or "I'm this," or "I'm that." It's just so far out there, and implies a sort of sense of carelessness at the very least, and most likely trying to ingratiate yourself with people. I mean, it's not an exact in my mind. It's just the sort of the feeling from study and so on. Right. Geez, I could be here all night. We need more than one monk. Where are all the other monk radios? We need more monks. Okay, I'll go quickly through these. I'm not going to make videos, not about this one. As far as I know, no exceptions are made for a monk who has diabetes. Now, I think I've answered this before, but you're allowed to have butter. Butter is, I think, the best I can suggest. I'm not sure how that affects diabetes, but if you have butter, plain butter without any sugar, I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know. That's probably a bad. Don't let me give you that sort of advice. But no, and in fact, I would suggest that diabetes would be something that, one of those illnesses that would prevent one from ordaining. One should not ordain if one has diabetes, because one will be unable to undertake the training. How much time would it take for the mind to get calmer? Depends on the person. We got people giving rude comments. What are you doing here? I mean, really? I guess that makes some people happy to say such things. It's the thing about the internet. It's totally democratic. Oh, cool. Well, thank you. Are there parts of the Pali Canon that could be misconstrued as metaphysical? No, I don't think there's any. Don't quite get it, but I don't think there's anything that you can construe as, in a sense of skillful lying or something like that. But here's a two-part question. Okay. Which part do I post? Okay, this is one about right effort. This is the second part. My understanding is that in meditation one should not make effort. I should have put up the first part and then the second part. To have some state arise. Okay. Could you clarify the relationship between right effort and meditation? My understanding is that in meditation, my understanding of right effort is to use effort to have helpful states arise and stay, and unhelpful states to not arise or to go away. Yet my understanding is that in meditation one should not make effort to have some state arise nor pass away, but only to note what has arisen. Your clarifications or thoughts would be welcome. Right. Well, the point is that in order to get to a state of clarity of mind, where one is just noting what has arisen, one has to first deal with unwholesome state. So that is the ideal wholesome state. So cultivating that is really the whole of the practice. So that part of right effort is correct. Now, as far as making the unwholesome states go away, these are the hindrances, the states that get in the way of meditation. Really, the fourfold, a lot of the Buddha's teachings start conceptual. So this can be explained conceptually. You could take each one of the four great efforts and apply it to some aspect of your life. So I get angry a lot. I should work to prevent that, and when I'm angry, I should work to make it go away, and so on. But when you condense it and come right down to the actual practice, the four great efforts are all accomplished simply by one act of being mindful. At the moment that you're mindful, you are cultivating wholesomeness, you are protecting it, you are working to do away with unwholesomeness, and you are preventing it. All four of them are accomplished. So, as with many of the Buddha's teaching, you have to understand that it deals from the broad to the very very practical. So you can think of it and that's how reality really works. All of the big things in our lives, all of the major issues in our lives, all come down to this one concept or this one idea of experience. So all of the things in our lives that harm or benefit us are made up of individual experiences. So if you can come to in the beginning, you deal with those big issues and try try to work them out in a Buddhist way, but eventually it's just a matter of dealing with the experiences. Once you get good at meditation, you find a suitable environment in which to meditate, then it's all of it is accomplished by one single action. Morality, concentration, wisdom, all of the 37 states that partake of enlightenment are all cultivated simply through the practice of mindfulness and objectivity. Thank you, Peter Smith, for injecting some reality into our delusion that we were somehow safe here. Do you believe that believe that there is such a thing as a legitimate suspension of the ethical? All right, let's do a video for this one. Do you believe that there is such a thing as... No, I'm not going to do a video for that. That's conjectural. Maybe I should do a video. All right, go ahead. Do you believe that there is such a thing as a legitimate suspension of the ethical? No, because in Buddhism, ethical is defined in such a way as you can't legitimately suspend it. It's ethical if it's unethical if it leads to suffering. If it is deleterious. That's the definition of unethical. So you couldn't legitimately suspend that. Now, there are some actions, at the very least, that are both ethical and unethical. So they have some aspects of them that are ethical and unethical, but mind states cannot be. What is truly real cannot be. So one moment cannot be both ethical and unethical. Yeah, so it cannot be both beneficial to you and harmful, because it can't have both wholesome qualities and unwholesome qualities at the same time. So ethics in Buddhism actually, again, we're dealing with the broad, or we're dealing with the very microscopic in terms of momentary experience. And everything is made up of these momentary experiences. When you get down to a momentary experience, it's either ethical or unethical, and that is what's the word? Immutable. No, it is that it is ethical or unethical. There's no legitimizing it, that which is unethical. Okay. Right. I'll answer a couple more, and then maybe I have to go. Okay, please don't post any more of the canned ones, because I'm going to stop here soon. Let's try and get through these. Okay, no silly hypothetical questions, sorry. What are your thoughts about vegetarianism, veganism? I've done a video on vegetarianism. I think a fairly good one. It's also Mark Zuckerberg is in the title because he did something that was kind of nasty in regards to killing animals. Do you believe in aliens? No, I'm sorry. Not going to go there. Oops. Okay, let's do one more. Can you post one more, Robin, from the Google moderator? Sorry, I deleted that last one. Can you post one more? And then we'll call it a night. Can we ban people? Oh, we can. Oh, here we go. Hello, Peter. Welcome to my ban list. Block. Sorry, dude. Any tips for Burmese posture for tall people? I don't see what being tall has anything to do with it. I think you mean inflexible people. Slowly, go slowly. Eventually, you'll get more flexible. Flexibility often has its roots in one state of mind. So as your mind gets more relaxed, you'll find that your body becomes surprisingly naturally flexible. I don't know about that one. I'm not really going to do a video for that because, again, it's just so yeah, dealing with paranoid thoughts. No, mindfulness meditation should cover it. No, there's not much that has to be done there. Simon's textbook. That's the sort of thing that you deal with through mindfulness meditation. Okay, let's call it a night there then. We went just over an hour. You know, I think if I had someone else here asking the questions, that's the last element that we're missing. This is great, though. It's great to have this thing on the side. And I can even ban those people, because you need to actually be logged into Google, I think. So you can't just spam us, and I can block you, and once you're blocked, I think you're out. So hopefully, at least for as long as it takes you to make a new Google account. Okay, here's the second one. Let's get rid of this person as well. We'll just trap them. They come in, and then we block them. You're blocked. What you gonna do about that? My father is worried. There's a funny comment. My father is worried because I'm at home and it's Saturday night. Right on. Way to go. Thanks. Nice to have you staying at home to watch Monk Radio. Timing should be the same. It's we started 1 hour and 17 minutes ago. 1 hour and 18 minutes ago, and counting. So whatever time that is, that's what time I should be doing this every week. But this whole broadcast is being recorded and will be on YouTube. So You can watch it anytime. But this neat sort of interactive question thing probably means you want to join us. We got 40 viewers. That's great. Okay, I'm going to stop making videos. I'm just going to answer some of these. Okay, I'll just keep answering, but I'm not going to make videos. That's much less stressful. I mean, otherwise it's hard to coordinate. What is your opinion on panhandlers? I mean, duh, it's not a good thing. I don't think there's much good to be said. I don't know. Sorry, dude. Okay, Robin posted another one from Google Moderator. I don't know. I mean, it's these questions about any question that can be answered like by a simple yes or no, or it can be answered simply by just keep meditating. I'm not sure what to do about them. But basically no, you can just keep noting hearing, but you can also go back to whatever it is. I mean, it's a valid question. It's a valid question. So here, I'm not doing a video about it, but I'm going to give an answer. So absolutely, you can note hearing at any time, but the thing is, if your mind is somewhere else, and something else is more prominent, then you have no reason to be noting the hearing. You should be noting the other object. I guess another thing is it becomes samatha as a result, because you're no longer involved in the present moment. You've created a concept. It's actually a good question, because you've created a concept of hearing, of you staying with hearing. There's sort of a structure to your practice. The point being that it then it's cheating. It takes away the uncertainty, and therefore pulls you away from reality, which is uncertain, where your mind is not going to always be on the hearing. You're cheating by saying, "Oh, I'm just going to note hearing." It's fine for a practice, a basic practice, but it's not going to. It's not going to be sustainable. It's not a way that a person could viably practice, because your mind won't stay with the hearing all the time. Your mind will go elsewhere. If you're not noting the other things, then you're not really practicing, and you're not creating this state of constant mindfulness, where the concentration then builds, and you're able to see things clearly. Okay, no, Robin, no more. Please don't post any more from over there. I'm just going to answer people's questions here. Although I don't know if that's fair, is it? Because these people have... Well, it's just I think that we're kind of over time. And after about an hour or so, well, I don't know. After some time, it starts to get a little bit of a difficult, the whole working the camera and so on. After a while, I just have had enough. I may have missed this in your videos. Yeah, this is great, because now people are asking questions live, and it's sort of a dialogue, and this is kind of neat. So let's do this then. I'll give you an hour of recorded questions from Google Moderator, and then we'll have an hour of this informal, not recorded advice type questions. That's kind of neat. So I can stay here till 7, that's fine. Okay, do you actually speak the mantras, or do you just say it? Well, you should read my booklet on how to meditate. No, you never speak the mantras. If you haven't read my booklet, please do that. How to Meditate, A Beginner's Guide to Peace. It's on my website, yuttadhammo.sirimangalo.org. You can just go to htm.sirimangalo.org, and that goes straight to the page. But yes, you never say it out loud, and you don't say it in your head either. Your mind is at the object, the stomach, for example, and it's kind of like you're saying it in the stomach. It takes time to get a feel for that, but that's how it is. Can't take questions about personal experiences. Do you think we choose our parents? I think if your mind is very clear, it can be similar to choosing your parents. You can be very clear about where you want to go. But for most people, it's not possible. If your mind is very, very pure, very, very clear, then whatever presents itself, you'll be able to discern whether it's worth following or worth pursuing or not. And that the same goes with the moment of death. If the mind is very clear and mindful, then maybe not exactly one's parents, but at least one's rebirth. The choice can be much, much more present. You're much more capable of choosing. Dangerous to practice meditation without a teacher. Yeah, it's not normally dangerous. Not for the most people wouldn't find it dangerous. They'll just find it discouraging, unfruitful, more so than if you have a teacher and a sangha. But I don't think anyone should worry about the danger of it, unless you're the sort of person who's reckless and just goes all into something and obsesses over things. Then you might be in for some danger. You have to learn not to get obsessive about things, because people who are obsessive can get on wrong practice. But for most people, you'll just stop, give it up. So it's hard to keep yourself doing it without support. I study physics. If I cling to it and enjoy it, is this against the Buddha's teaching? Well, what if I told you it was? How would that make you feel? I don't imagine that would make you feel very good. And thus we have the cause of suffering. Clinging is a cause for suffering, because you can't always get what you want, and anytime it's threatened, even, you're suffering. What does taking refuge in the Buddha really mean? Yeah, refuge. Well, no, actually, even though the Buddha's passed away, you can very much take him as your refuge. Whether the Buddha's in the next room or whether the Buddha's passed away, what's the difference, right? You take refuge, it's in your own mind, in terms of he is my leader, he is my teacher, I am taking refuge in his teachings and in his enlightenment. It's him I'm taking refuge in, not some other teacher, not some other leader. It's the Buddhist religion that I follow. It really has nothing to do with whether he's passed away or not. It doesn't mean that you actually have to sit with him and practice with him. That's not what taking refuge means. It's a moral sort of support. vengeful thoughts and simply cannot let them go. Well, now you're seeing non-self. It's not about letting go. Isn't something you do, you practice. Letting go is something that comes about through the practice, through seeing non-self, and you'll find yourself actually able to let go of your vengeful thoughts more now that you see that you're not in control of them. You let go of them more once you see that you can't let them go, because you see that you can't control them, and that cultivates a sense of boredom with them, or disenchantment with them. Ennui, as they say in French. Ennui. I think we use that word in English. Ennui. How do we say it? Sort of boredom, really. And then you just let them go. Samsara is not physical. Samsara is just a concept. It refers to wandering on. It's one's individual uh, meandering. So it's not about being human. It's about you and your wandering, an individual's wandering on. So people don't go, when they hear samsara, it sounds like they're talking about a place, like the universe, but that's not really the case. Mastering criteria, or will you just know? Well, the basic techniques in the booklet are like, that's what we teach meditators on the first and second days of their meditation course. So it's not really about mastering them. Do I really suggest to master them? Well, take a while to do them, but really quite soon after getting a hang of them and being able to practice them, you should move on to the higher stages. And for that, you need contact with the teacher. But it's really, from a technical perspective, it's just the very beginning of the meditation practice. Even though the concepts in that book can be used to lead you to enlightenment, it's much more beneficial for you to have more advanced techniques to practice. What is your philosophy of time? I don't really have one. I'm not big into philosophy. No, meditation, you stop thinking about such things. Don't worry about time anymore. I think I think you guys can also block the comments, right? Because I'm seeing sometimes they just disappear. But this works quite well. I mean, for the internet, for something out there, we're doing quite well as far as keeping... Google does a good job with spam. I'm impressed. The only problem we still have is with open hangouts. I don't know if that's been fixed, but before it was, if you have a public hangout where you just let anyone join the video conversation, there's no way then to block those people. There's no way then to kick them out, because it's a democratic sort of thing. And if you have 4 or 5 people in a hangout and 5 trolls come in, they can effectively ban you, even though you started the hangout. They could anyway. I don't know if that's been fixed yet, but that was a horrible experience. I was kicked out of my own. It's been fixed. I was kicked out of my own hangout by these horrible, nasty people. Well, not horrible, but they were trolls. Robert, are you in my... list of... Right, viewers can flag and the comment disappears. That's good. Hey, Robin. Please ask aliens to save the world. I don't get it. No. Oh, sorry. I'm very interested in the so-called imponderables. Is that one of the imponderables? I don't know. I don't have any comment on that one. Given up many things, such as drinking, but I still find myself wanting them still at times. The storm before the calm. But remember, this type of meditation that I teach is not really going to give you a sense of calm necessarily, not a lasting, not a reliable one. The calm that you'll get is through contentment, through being okay with things. But you will be able to give up. So it won't be a sense of often there's a misconception of what peace means. Peace meaning not to experience certain things. But true peace means being objective about all experience. So the point is to be calm within the storm. That's the goal. No, I'm sorry. I can't think about that one. Wait, this question about the imponderables. Ironically, I have no interest in thinking about that one. How can we get to the 108 level? Well, yes, we're doing this offering of robes to my teacher this fall. Now, the goal was 84 monks. I don't actually know how many monks, 84 sets of robes. If you go to my YouTube channel, the video is now the main video on my channel. So we have this Indiegogo project, our organization set up. We've already got 73% of funding, according to the website. And there's still 39 days left, so but that's only for 108 robes, and it actually probably isn't going to cover everything because the robes are a little more expensive than... No, I suppose that's... Well, no, the problem is Indiegogo takes 9% of our funding, or 5%. If we don't get the goal of $9,072, Indiegogo takes 9% of our profits. They've already taken that, and they don't give it back. Now, apparently, if we reach the goal, they lower that to 5%, which I guess means they give us a refund of 4%. Such a huge amount of money. So we may not have enough, but the organization's work. The organization's doing this, so that'll all be worked out. But the idea of getting to 108, well, that's kind of a dream. Maybe it will happen. Not really. We'll just give whatever comes. I'm not really concerned about it. But if you want to get involved, you're welcome to. It's an open invitation. I'm not pushing it. I have 2 monks in a Thai restaurant. They had the right shoulder uncovered and way past noon. Yeah, I didn't know monks had those freedoms either, but I guess Texas isn't Texas the Lone Star State? Texas is a pretty free place. Maybe. To each their own, no? Some monks may take that freedom. If it's against the rules, certainly not correct, but they're only hurting themselves. Well, they're also hurting other people's faith in them. It's a sad thing. This, yes, someone wants to know Vibhajyavadi. Let me look it up. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, Vibhajyavadi. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the correct spelling, but on the internet it's Vibhajavadi. That's, I just Googled it and it is coming up. I don't know if that is the correct spelling or not, but I think there may be two J's actually. Yeah, that's better. Vibhajyavada. Yeah, I would go two J's. Vibhajavadi. If you read about, I don't know which one. I think in the Vinaya Pitaka, yeah. Sutta Vibhanga. No, is that correct? I think it's in the commentary, or else it's in the Jataka commentary. I can't remember. No. Dipavamsa, anyway. It's no, I don't know about that either. Anyway. Katawatu, that's it. It's the story of the Katawatu, the fifth book of the Abhidhamma. Fifth book, I think. Fifth book. Excuse me. I have social anxiety. Yeah, I understand. Well, there's no easy cure for life's problems, especially when they're extreme like that. But you can work to change that habit. You have to get the right approach to it. The first step is to stop being anxious about your anxiety or worried about your anxiety, because that escalates it. It's a feedback loop. So try to become objective about your anxiety. Just letting yourself be anxious. Don't worry that you can't leave the house or can't function, etc., etc. Instead of trying to be something you're not, start to learn about what you are. And that will ease up. That will ease up your anxiety. You'll feel a lot better as a result. And that leads to a decoherence effect. I don't know. I mean, it starts to dissolve. It's a backwards feedback loop where the chain reaction causes it to dissolve, because you're no longer anxious about your anxiety, and so the objectivity has now taken the place of the anxiety, and there's nowhere for the anxiety to arise. Are you interested in a trip in the Balkan countries? Yeah, sure. Next year I was thinking to go to the UK anyway, but sure, get in touch. If I can somehow fly over there, I guess, maybe from the UK. Because someone was thinking about inviting me to the UK next year. Do you think of neuroscience? I think it's mildly interesting. I mean, it certainly has opened people's eyes up to the benefits of meditation and about looking for cures from within. You know, self-help instead of chemical help. You know, the old school was chemicals would fix the brain, right? Or shock therapy or something external would fix the internal. So it's nice to see people trying to work on it from the inside, to see, or to see some validation and sort of a move towards accepting the validity of internal cure. Yes, setting a good example is the best. Again, it goes back to the first question tonight about I think one of the first questions about when you help someone and they get angry about it. So that, you know, why are you advising others? Why are you encouraging others? I suppose it's different. To some extent, you can encourage others. But it still has to be quite laid back. You only encourage people when they're clearly receptive to it. You know, convincing people is never good. They don't feel good about it. You won't feel good about it. It's not good all around. And don't worry about setting a good example. Just be a good person, and everything else will come naturally. Be pure. Be true. Be clear in your mind. What is your opinion on that? Well, the Abhidhamma is part of the Tipitaka, so I accept it more or less. I don't find anything wrong with it. I don't understand samatha meditation. Isn't this from... Oh, I don't know. This is also from the other site. You're not just copying and pasting, are you? Or did you post it there and now we're moving? Which is fine. But I won't do a video then. Samatha meditation. Well, in the beginning you'll feel tense. I can't really comment. I don't teach samatha meditation. But a lot of these conditions are just not a result of the practice, but they're a result of your original state of mind, because you're doing something new. It's like you're driving in one direction, you're attempting to turn the car in another direction. It's jarring at first. It takes time to retrain your mind in a new way. So if you're training your mind in calm, that's going to take time. In the beginning you will feel tense, but that's not because you're practicing, that's because of your old way conflicting with your new way. You're not doing anything wrong, you just need more practice and patience. The Buddha abandoned his family. The Buddha did worse than that. And it's not the Buddha, in fact. The Buddha didn't abandon his family, the Bodhisattva. But he did worse than that. He actually gave his kids away, apparently. Gave his kids away to a nasty old man. And his wife, I think. No, he gave his kids away to the nasty old man, and then he gave his wife away to Saka, I think, who came. And I think that's a good part of the answer, because the Bodhisattva was at the point where he had gone through so many lives that he realized it didn't really matter what he did. It didn't really matter what happened to the people around him. There was no escape. It was like he was in this loop, like that old movie Groundhog Day. and it didn't matter what he did, didn't matter what happened. You know, he could give his wives away, he could kill his children, or he could treat them perfectly. In the end, he was just going to be reborn again and again and again, sometimes going to a bad place, sometimes going to a good place. So abandoning his wife and children, wife and child, really is fairly inconsequential at that point, because he's like, doesn't matter if even if I was their sole caregiver and they starved to death, it doesn't really matter, because we're all going to come back and do this again. It's just going to go on and on and on and on again. So for him to give up his wife and children, he would have given up absolutely anything to allow him to find the way out, to find what was truly the way out. So the idea that he did something shocking, you know, I mean, from a Buddhist point of view, it's kind of a silly concept, because it's, in the end, what does it mean? Oh, I treated them poorly. Well, yeah, bully to me, I mean, really bad for me, but not really consequential in samsara. So with that thought, he put aside his feelings of caring for his wife and his child. Even though apparently when he saw his child, he said, Bandanang jatang, rahulang jatang, a fetter has been born. Because in his heart it was very strong, and he realized that he had to let that go if he was ever going to find the true way out. There was no good to be had in fitting in with the matrix, no, or samsara, as we put it. And this is what Mara actually said. Mara said to the Bodhisattva, look, why don't you just stay as a layperson and do good deeds? You can do good things as a layperson, which would, of course, would have been reflected in his mind, the idea that, yeah, I could just do that. It's a lot easier than what I'm doing now. But he said that isn't going to lead to any good conclusion. It isn't going to lead to freedom from suffering for anyone. And look, as a result, what he was able to do. Apparently, his wife and his child became enlightened and were able to free themselves from suffering as well. So, good for him. I love these all sentient beings. Yeah, it would mean the universe wouldn't exist. The universe only exists because of experience. That's the Buddhist answer. I don't teach either of those. They're both samatha meditation. So you should figure out which one is appropriate for your character type. Or better yet, find a teacher who is able to do that for you. Or better yet, practice vipassana. Practice mindfulness meditation. You can read my book. Okay, stop. Enough. Put the brakes on. It's almost 7 o'clock. I think we'll stop there. Thank you. That's kind of neat. Neat to see there were so many questions, and good questions as well. But it's nice to not have the pressure of having to make a video, because then you have to decide which ones are worthy of a video and which ones are not. So I'm going to have to think about that. I know people like the individual videos. It's just a question of when is enough enough. Yeah. Because this is all going to be recorded, this whole long session, if you ever want to watch the session. But I know people like to have individual videos for their questions. Maybe what we could do instead is have the whole session like this, and then I'll just pick, if I say, hey, that's a good one to make a video about, then I'll record it. Otherwise, we'll just let it go. Anyway, thank you all for showing up. Appreciate it. Wishing you all a good day and good practice and progress on the path to freedom from suffering. Be well. Have a good night.